Hello everyone and welcome to my tutorial. In this video I'll show how a beginner can make a good portrait starting from scratch. I'm using very limited supplies today, a couple of pencils, it's 4B and 2B pencils, and a couple of normal erasers and a sharpener. I'm using this picture as a reference. You should always take a good quality picture as reference. And this is a normal drawing paper. You can also use any normal chart sheet or even an A4 size computer paper. So while we are making a portrait, we have two main objectives in our mind: that our portrait should resemble to the actual picture and that it should look like the same person, and the other objective is obviously that the portrait should look good. The blending and the shading should be smooth. I'll show you how to blend and shade later in the video, but for the first objective it's really important that you know how to observe a picture, because drawing is 50% a game of observing the portrait and 50% it's about moving the pencil right. So while you are observing, you always observe in proportions. If you are observing the length of the nose, you will compare it with other features. You will compare it with the length of the eye. You will compare it with the distance you have from this nose to the chin. You also compare distances with the shapes, and everything is in proportion, and it should be in the right proportion in your drawing as well. There are also few things that you should focus, specifically the things that differentiate one face from another. I wish I knew these things earlier. It makes your drawing really easy. These are the things that I learned with time. Okay, these things are the distance between eyes, the height of the forehead, the length and width of the nose, the shape of the cheeks, and the width of the chin, distance from lower lip to the jaw, and the shape, or you can also say the depth of the eye, and last but not the least, the shape of the jaw. These are the things that differentiate one person from another. So to get these proportions right to the millimeters on your paper, it's really important that a beginner use a grid for these. You might be able to make them without a grid later, but it's really important that you use a grid if you're a beginner. I'll leave the link of the application I used to use to make the grid on the picture. Make the same grid on the paper, or make the grid on the paper and then make the same grid on the picture, and then start copying. Only copy the outlines. We'll make the rest by shading. As you can see, I've already made the outlines and marked the position of the features. This process of making these lines can take up to 20 to 25 minutes with or without grid, even for someone who knows how to draw. So skipping that part, I'll continue with the drawing and shading. I'll start from the eyes. In the beginning, you should always draw very lightly. Never press your pencil so hardly on paper. So there's one problem that every beginner usually face in the beginning, is that how to move their pencil while they are shading a particular area. Like I'm shading this part, and you might think that either I should move my pencil like this or round, or how. So answer to that is that there is no particular way for that. You can move it in any direction as far as you are not making dark lines. It will blend and won't look awkward. We'll draw the lighter parts first, and we'll make the darker parts with the 4B pencil afterwards. You should always move the paper as your arm feels comfortable. I'm gonna move it like this a bit for my own comfort. I initially made the eyeball small, and then I just looked at the white part and the eyeball, and I compared things. Drawing is all about comparing. Compare things and look at them from all the perspectives. And I observed that the white part is in my drawing is way bigger than the eyeball. I'm making the shine in the eye now. The center part, I'll make it with 4B pencil later. And this outer part, since it's brown and it's of lighter color, I'll make it with this pencil. It's a 2B pencil that I'm using. I'm only using two pencils, a 2B and a 4B. So this white portion of the eye that you might think is white is never white. It's always gray, especially from the corners. You can leave it white if you feel like from this inner part, but you should never leave it white from the corners. It's never white actually. There is some reflection in this part also. Leave some white part here also. Should always keep comparing things, like the distance I have between this double line and the distance between the eye. I am comparing it now. This looks good here in my picture. Everything is in proportion and you need to keep that proportion right. Now I'm making the eye bag under her eye. You might feel like it's very big or very small, so you should always look at it in reference to the other features, like the distance between this eye bag and the nose. Have I got it right? If I look at that way, when I look at that way, I feel like it is much wider here than here. So I'll make it a bit more downward. And it also feels like, because I haven't shaded here as yet, so I have started using the 4B pencil now, and before I start using that, I'll recommend that you take a picture of your drawing and compare it with the actual picture, or you can just look at it from a distance. It will surely help you see your mistakes, and it always helps me. I'll do all the blending in the end of the portrait. I'm just making the shades at the moment. And it's time for the eyebrow. You do not need to put a lot of thought into this. Just stay in the shape you have drawn. Now I'm starting with nose. You should be specifically careful with nose. Nose is always a bit tricky part. Just start shading the areas that you find dark. Do not shade them so dark. Start from shading them slightly dark and then making them darker later. We also have some shading here. It's all about observing the portrait. So that's it for now. I will shade lips and the all the other parts of the face in my next video. See you till then.